Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, and I'm really glad to be with you here today to hear from some folks who use public transit in Oakland County and our region. And when I say I'm glad you're here, I think most of you are probably joining us by Facebook, so I want to encourage you that during this broadcast for the next 45 minutes to an hour, if you have a comment, you have a question that you would like to ask us, go ahead and put those in the comment section on the timeline, and we'll be looking at those and we'll be grabbing questions as we can, okay? So the folks that I am with here today, these are people who rely on public transit for their daily chores, for their life, essential healthcare appointments, to get to school, to get to jobs. They use transit, and we wanted you to hear from them. Because for many of them, public transit is their only option, and it's not always an easy or readily available system to navigate. And we'll hear more from them in a minute. And so that's why the Oakland Public Transit millage, it's a 0.95 mils to be exact, is all about. That's what it's all about. This November the 8th on your ballot, or if you're voting absentee, you're already starting to vote on it, is going to provide funding not just for our current SMART bus system, but also to the Western Oakland Transit Authority, the North Oakland Transit Authority, and the Older Persons Commission in the Rochester area. Now, the money that these free local transit providers provides and receives is from this new millage is going to be more than we currently get. And so what that means is that the existing services are going to be maintained as they are, but they will also be expanded so that even more people can get to rides and more connections can be made with our communities. I'm not sure if you know this, but between WODA, NODA, and OPC, as they're called, the three entities that are not SMART, nearly 90,000 people got rides in 2021 to healthcare appointments, schools, shopping, other essential destinations like that. And these services help some of the most vulnerable people in our communities, the elderly, the disabled, our veteran populations, as well as transporting students to college classes, and we're going to hear from one of those in a minute. And SMART, of course, is still providing more than 3.7 million rides each year to people in Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. So the funding that is slated for the SMART bus system will allow them to expand to major employment centers in Oakland County like Novi, for instance, which does not currently have transit services. And it'll provide routes and on-demand connector services to areas that are not being served now. Last year, more than 200,000 connector rides were provided to our regional residents, and we believe this is going to be a growing attraction coming in the years to follow. So this will allow more of our residents to access transportation across the county to get to their jobs, their health care, and all that the region has to offer. So enough for me. I want to hear now and let you hear from some of the people who actually use this system to explain why they think it's important. So with us today, I'm really excited to have Lauren Baker. We'll start down here, and she is the Public Policy and Outreach Specialist at the Disability Network of Eastern Michigan. Yeah, oh, there you go.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Baker. I work for the Disability Network Eastern Michigan. And at Disability Network, we are committed to promoting inclusion for all by breaking down barriers and opening paths of independence for all. And one of the most important ways for people to be independent is to be able to get where they want to go when they want to get there. And so
Lauren, hang on one second. I'm going to introduce everyone at once, and then I'm going to get to you, okay? Do you mind? I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have explained that, because I just want you to know who these five wonderful people are that we have first, and then we're going to get into I think, going to be a really interesting discussion. So, Kermit Williams, the gentleman to my left, he's the co-director of Oakland Forward. Some of you may know him as the former Pontiac City Council president. So, Kermit, thank you so much for being with us. To my right is Lucas Lasecki. Did I say that last name right? Yeah. He's a 17-year-old Oakland Community College student who uses transportation to get to school. Next to him is Pamela Campbell. She's a former business owner and a resident here in Southfield. So thank you, Pamela, for being with us. And then finally, Adam Genovi is the Chief Operating Officer for Oakland Community Health Network. So thank you so much for being here. All right. So I'm gonna start with Lucas, if you don't mind. I want you to talk a little bit about your experience taking public transit 5 days a week to get to classes at Oakland Community College and why it matters to you. And I also understand that you took transit from OCC to here in Southfield today. Is that right?
I did indeed. It was
Yeah.
only about a 20-minute ride. The scheduling was a little strange with the every hour service, but I got here in one piece. It was just a short walk, and the weather was nice too, so that helped it along there. But yeah, I am at OCC 5 days a week. It's a convenient way for me to get from my home in Farmington Hills right along 12 Mile with service every hour right directly to campus. So, it seems like a no-brainer, 50 cents. You walk to the stop, get on board, and if your class is short enough, you can get back on the same transfer.
Which is even better, right?
Yep. It saves me from having to expend money to buy, maintain, insure, and fuel a car of my own. Saves me the stress of driving, and what I feel like a lot of people don't realize about transit is you see a lot of interesting things. You don't have to have your eyes on the road. You can be looking all around you and find things you never knew were there.
That's a great point that I think we don't always appreciate, right? Because when you're not driving, you get an opportunity to actually experience the trip. And I want to ask you something as a follow-up. I want to ask you something else. I heard that you went to an event in Novi last week, and you took the bus to where the route ends at 10 Mile and Haggerty, and then Novi does not currently have bus transit services right now, and so then it was still 3 miles from there to Novi City Hall. And you walked that final 3 miles? Tell us about that.
It's just a stretch of the legs. I'm kind of used to doing some long walks. It's just a nice way to get some exercise and fresh air. But yeah, I took the bus to the city line since Novi's opted out. It ends where Farmington Hills ends, so that was a nice 3-mile walk, and I actually got stopped by a railroad crossing along the way, so I was a little bit late. But I'm not alone in that experience. There are a lot of people who work at 12 Oaks Mall and the shopping areas around 12 Mile and Novi Road who go through that same commute every day. Every day on my 740, my 12-mile bus, I'll see 8-10 people on their way to get off, make that 2.5, 3-mile walk to get to their jobs, all because Novi doesn't have service.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. So Kermit, I'm going to go to you next, if you don't mind. Because I heard a story about your mother's ordeal of having her job relocated and her inability to get there because of the lack of public transit options in her community and the impact that had on providing for her family. So do you mind, I know it's a little personal, but do you mind sharing your mom's story a little bit?
No problem, Executive Coulter, and thank you for having us on the panel today. And if I get a little emotional, I'll sip my Coke Zero. But so my mother is my shero. She has cerebral palsy. She worked 2 jobs most of my life and never really had a vehicle or the ability to drive. She was working on Telegraph at the Marshalls that was in the Tel 12 Plaza, and she worked there for about 8 years. They moved the Marshalls that she was working at to Highland, Michigan. And so in order for her to get to Highland, because there was no bus service, because they were opt-out community at the time, it cost her almost $50 a day in taking cabs in order to go there. She worked there for about a month and then had to retire because she couldn't afford to do it. And so she had to tap in early to her 401k and some other things, and it really sent her on a spiral because she wasn't able to commute just that distance and retire from the job she loved and had. And so transit represents more than just the ability to go to the movies and shopping places. It's the livelihood for people to be able to access freedom. And so not only my mother's story is not unique, there's others that are there, but $50 a day to go to a job where, as he just said, you could pay 50 cents to get to is really not only heartbreaking, but it is really taking people with low financial strength out of viable economies. And so why I support transportation is because transportation represents freedom, Dave. And so for people to be able to traverse where they want to go and be able to make a living for their family and not take money out of their mouths. Transit is a no-brainer.
And I mentioned before that you are the former president of the Pontiac City Council. There's a significant percentage of folks in Pontiac that do not have access to transportation. What was your, how did you respond to that as city council president, and what are some of the experiences that you had?
So I was one of those people. When I first started working, I started off as a canvasser with Acorn, and I had to take 3 buses to get all the way from downtown Pontiac to Lafayette Street. They have some good conies down there, Dave. But not only that, the other part is transit moves business, Dave. And so when Amazon was considering where they wanted to locate, the transportation had to be there. And so Smart Service helped them become the hub. And so now there's thousands of jobs that we have in Pontiac because we have good transportation. And so we want to have that for the whole county and people be able to traverse. Great Lakes Crossing, all of those places could be stopped if people can't get from Flint and Pontiac to Auburn Hills just because they can't take the bus.
Thank you for sharing that. How's your mom doing now?
She is doing excellent, but she will be voting yes. She's got her absentee ballot. So.
All right. So Pamela, let me go over to you. We'll go back. We'll ping back and forth. I said you're a former business owner and a current resident of Southfield, right?
Yes.
And then you became disabled, I understand.
I became disabled originally 2000, but it was 2002 Social Security actually officially determined that I was disabled.
Okay. And you use transit primarily to get to your doctor's appointments, is my understanding?
It's life support. Transportation
Tell us,
life support.
yeah, tell us about that. What happened with you, and how did that help? Yeah.
There's no way to live without it. You can't carry on your life. You can't get medical care. You can't go run errands. I can't get copies made for the HHS to renew my food stamps. I lose them. Same with my housing choice voucher. I can't get. They give you a time limit. I can't get transportation to go get these copies made to get them to Mister. Then I lose the housing choice voucher. So I'm not only starving, I'm homeless on the street. Transportation is imperative.
Yeah.
Can't live without it.
How easy has it been to navigate for you? Has it been a challenge?
It's always a challenge, but
Yeah.
I'm a tough Brit and I can handle the challenges.
You seem like it. I have no doubt about that. Good for you. I appreciate it. Thank you for being.
Quite welcome.
We'll get back to you. Lauren, all right. I know you have a lot to say because you already started, but I want you represent individuals with disabilities who use public transportation. You're not a disabled person yourself, but you work every day with these folks. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do in your work and what the needs are that you see with the clients that you touch every day.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this panel. There are 15 centers for independent living throughout the state of Michigan, and I work for Disability Network Eastern Michigan. We cover 7 counties. Used to be Disability Network Oakland and Macomb, and we've recently acquired the Thumb, so we have 5 additional counties. The office I work out of is in Troy, in Oakland County. And as a public policy specialist, I've attended, over the past 10 years in my role at the Disability Network, I've been given the opportunity to attend a lot of coffee hours and appointments with our legislators and get to hear from the constituents who they themselves use public transportation and how important it is for them to be able to get to employment, to run their errands, to visit their family, and just to be independent. And that is what we work at the Disability Network, to empower people to be as independent as possible, and by teaching them to ride public transit, that offers them just a whole world of possibility. We receive referrals from Michigan Rehabilitation Services, MRS, vocational rehab, so people who are looking to get back to work who have disabilities, and for a variety of reasons they're not able to drive. Could be a developmental, could have been an acquired disability, but they've never been on public transportation. So we can work one-on-one to teach them to ride the fixed route, to ride the Smart Connector, which is the curb-to-curb service. And it's just really nice after they've learned how to do it that they can get where they need to go.
Yeah. How easy is this? I heard this as well, Pamela. But how easy is the service to access for your customers? Is it challenging? Do they navigate it well? How does that How does
At the
that work?
first, to be honest, they are nervous and they're apprehensive the first time stepping onto the bus. They're not sure how to put in the fare card and where the bus stop will be, where they need to get off. So it is nice that we're able to provide that service so they're more comfortable.
Yeah,
using
and you help them with that
Yeah.
as well. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So Adam, I haven't forgot you. As I said, you're with the Oakland County Health Network, and you, a lot of your clients are in, I guess you'd say, the mental health space, right? They have challenges with mental health issues. And so talk to us a little bit about your clientele and how they're impacted by transit, access issues, and, you know, what does these transit services mean to them?
Yeah, well, thank you for allowing me to be here today and speak. And I've done my whole career in mental health, more years than I care to remember. And actually, the Tri-County areas, I've worked in Wayne, I've worked in Macomb, and now in Oakland. And it's always been a challenge. It's a challenge for the people that we serve. We know through our surveys and through our accessibility reports that there are not a lot of good options, so it makes us be creative. We have to be creative with the options that we provide to our members, and it really is about that, community inclusion, giving people options and helping them get to their appointments. And there's just not a lot out there, so we like I say, we learn to be creative on it, and the more resources that we can get for the people that we serve, the better we're going to be.
Are you the services you provide like Lauren's, or you help them initially figure out how to use the system? Is that part of the role that you play?
Yes,
Yeah.
when case management is a great example where case management can help an individual with options in the community and help them learn how to use the transportation options that they have. So yeah, that's and education is a big piece of that.
Show me an example. Bring it to life for us. Tell me about a client that you've had that maybe didn't know how to access the service, needed it, and maybe where it's made a difference. Can you think? Does somebody stand out for you?
Yeah, let me take you back to the 90s, I think. My first job was as a foster care case manager.
Yeah.
And I worked with a family who was working to reunify the mother and her children. And as part of that reunification, the kids had to be back in school, and the older kids were trying to get jobs, and the mom had to take the kids to various appointments, and just finding a way to get all of the people to the places that they needed to go was significantly challenging, and it was a barrier to that reunification. So we worked really hard to try and get options for that parent to proceed with that reunification. And that was just one real world example. That one always sticks with me because the constant trying and looking for resources for the family was a lot. It was a big challenge.
Lots to navigate. Yeah. Thank you. This millage is going to allow for the expansion of the reservation-based system and the app-based services provided by SMART and the 3 local service providers. So I want to mention that this isn't just about fixed routes. This is going to increase those door-to-door services, app-based, which are becoming increasingly popular. In Oakland County alone, I'm told, I'm looking at the number here, we had 115,000 reservation-based rides last year by SMART. This is going to allow them to expand that exponentially. So even if you're not right next to a fixed route, there are going to be increased services throughout the county under this proposal that would affect you. Like I mentioned, this is a ballot initiative that's going to be on all ballots in Oakland County on November 8th. Not just the communities that are served today by SMART and the 3 local transit agencies, but all of Oakland County communities will contribute to, and I believe, benefit from public transportation with the Oakland Transit Millage. The money that's generated in Oakland, I want to make sure this is clear to folks. The money that's raised here in Oakland will stay in Oakland County. None of this money bleeds over into Macomb County or Wayne County or Detroit or Livingston. This is a Oakland Transit Millage where every nickel of the transit services stays here for our businesses and our residents. If you're in one of the 24 communities that pays the SMART tax now, This millage is going to replace this, so I just want to be clear about what we're talking about here. So that millage goes away. The old smart millage goes away. It's currently 1.0 mils, so this is actually a slight decrease to 0.95 mils. But for the average homeowner throughout Oakland County, the millage is about $9 a month. So that's what we're talking about in terms of the average price of a home in Oakland County is about $9 a month. So I just wanted to throw out a few more facts there for you. Let me go back to my panelists, maybe in just a couple of minutes. From your perspective, what works well with our current public transit system as you've come to know it? And what would you like to, if there was an enhancement that, from your perspective or your client's perspectives, what might you suggest? And we'll go back to you, Lucas, if you don't mind.
Oh, what works well at least is convenience. The routes as they stand are pretty well laid out for the resources that are available to us, covering some of the major corridors, especially here in Southfield, like Greenfield, Southfield Road, Civic Center Drive, and 12 Mile out in my country of Farmington Hills. But it just really is provided pretty well for the resources that are available, and they're doing a nice job integrating that to branching off from the major corridors with the new flex service, taking people to smaller destinations on demand with smaller vehicles. That's been a pretty nice integration as it's gone so far.
Okay. Where do you live, by the way? Where are you taking it from, and what campus of OCC do you go to?
Well, I'm in Farmington Hills around 12 and Middle Belt. I go to Orchard Ridge.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. All right. Kermit, how about you? What's working well? What in your dream scenario of a more integrated and supported system should we be doing?
So now Smart has fast routes, right? So the bus I used to take took me an hour to get from Phoenix Center to the State Fairgrounds in Detroit, right? Yeah. So now that bus takes about 20 minutes for people to get there, which is phenomenal, right?
Okay.
And then also the flex service that he mentioned. But we need more buses, and we need to be able to connect people all throughout the county. You shouldn't have to stop somewhere in Oakland County because there's no longer bus service. Mm-hmm. And we have the most diverse county in the country, Mr. Coulter. And the and the fact that that is not celebrated with our bus service and diversity of places to go is a travesty. Because people can't go and see their friends, they can't go and see their family in certain pockets of our community. And that is where we need to not only expand this, but really move it. I hear you talking about the $9 a month that will be there. Yeah. But how do you put a price on dignity? There's a lot of people that I work with. I work for a social justice nonprofit. There's a lot of people that we pick up and take to work, but there's others that want to come in and they want to be able to get there on their own. They want to be able to commute on their own because they don't want to depend on anybody. Yeah. And so how much is that independence worth? Yeah. $9 is a small drop.
You bring up a good point, because sometimes you will hear, well, we have Uber, we have Lyft now, right? So you can get someplace now. You don't have to have a bus take you, but cost is a factor, right?
Yeah. So the difference between one of my canvassers taking Uber is $20. For them to take the bus is $2. Mm-hmm.
An option,
each way. So
yeah.
So 4 versus 40. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If I could add
please.
Another sort of anecdote. A friend of mine who recently got a job in Farmington, he used to take Lyft every day to work, and that would cost him nearly an hour's pay just each way going there. Now with Flex available, it's just a short walk to get into Farmington Hills, get a Flex, and it's only $2. It's quite a difference. Really makes it easier for him to take home more of his honest day's pay.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Pamela, tell me about what works well with the system, and you talked a little bit about that. And then, given your experience with how much you've used it, what kind of services enhancements would be valuable in your eyes?
We here in Southfield are blessed to have TOSS, the bus service that is for the Southfield seniors, and they're absolutely wonderful. They are 100%. Drivers and Wayne in the office are just wonderful people. That is definitely a service that we treasure. And hopefully that never gets defunded or such, then we'd be in trouble.
So this millage would continue to support that, but there, like I said, there could potentially be enhancements. Is it just awesome and you can't even think of how it could be better, or are there things that,
More buses and more drivers.
more buses and more drivers? Okay, yeah, fair enough, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Lauren,
Yeah, I worked as a mobility specialist for a program called My Ride 2 within the Area Agency on Aging 1B for 6 years, 1 day a week. And I would receive a lot of calls from people at that program. They provide transportation resources for residents of Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, and Washtenaw counties. We received so many calls from residents of Oakland County who needed to get to a doctor appointment in Wayne County. They lived in Farmington Hills and they needed to get to Livonia. Livonia's opt-out. And so we tried to find the lowest cost options for them, but usually a local senior center will stay within a city. So I would love to see countywide more buses and more options for people, more affordable.
okay, thank you. And so, Adam, let me give you the same question to you. What works really well? If we could enhance services from the perspective of your client base in particular and people with mental health challenges, what would be helpful?
Yeah, it's hard to say what works well now, but I will say my dream for the future, what I'd love to see is just quick, reliable transportation for the people that we serve. Options, more options for them, and it's really to get to those critical appointments that they have, and not only that, but to just get out into the community, to be part of that community. That's a big thing that we have. Is just that community inclusion. We want to be able to get people out there. So that's my hope.
Excellent, thank you. You guys have been great.
I could add,
Yeah, please.
just sort of going off what she said, more buses and more drivers is really a big improvement that this millage would hopefully bring to improve the system, because a lot of SMARTS routes only run hourly, and that isn't the most convenient for people like me who need to get around. But if that could be a half hour or even 40 minutes, that would bring a lot more ridership, because it's sort of a build it and they'll come thing. And it's the same thing with destinations too. That 12-mile route would be a lot busier if there were a big destination like 12 Oaks Mall at the end. But really, frequency is freedom. More frequency will make more options and make SMART and other transit options more accessible to people.
Thanks, thank you. So if you're just joining us, or if you've joined us, you weren't here at the beginning, I just want to remind you that we're talking about the Oakland County Transportation Millage that's going to be on the ballot on November 8th, or if you're getting your absentee ballot, you'll get that sooner. Local service details. Let's talk about this. There's been some conversation about, well, what is the exact expanded fixed routes in this plan? And there are a lot of ideas, and I think some significant thought has gone into this. But what SMART and the other providers have told us is that they want to work and develop these routes collaboratively with the members of the public, with the community organizations, the transit providers, the local governments, and county leadership. So they didn't want to be so prescriptive to say the stop should be here if we get to that, if you go to that community, and it should be somewhere else. And so I've heard that question a lot, and I just want you to know there will be expanded routes. That's the whole idea of this, but exactly where they are and where they go will be done in collaboration with the local communities. The other thing I would mention is that the county, and I'll speak on behalf of the county, is committed to making sure that the transit millage is fully transparent and annually audited to make sure with public meetings and oversight by our Board of Commissioners and my office at the county executive, because I think that's a vital piece of this. As I said, one of the things we'll be auditing is to make sure that all the monies we've raised have stayed here in service to Oakland County residents and businesses. So if you're watching us, you can get a lot more information, because there's a lot of Q&As and a lot of things involved in this millage. But I wanted you to hear, and I appreciate if you're watching us taking the opportunity to listen to some folks who have a real vested interest in this from their perspective. But if you want to learn more about the Oakland Transit Millage, you can go to our website, which is, of course, oakgov.com/Oakland Transit. Okay? Oakland Transit. So this is also a press event, and so I believe there are some press both here with us and following us on Facebook. And if we'll start with the member of the press who's here in person. if you have any questions, and if not, we'll go to the folks on that are following us live.
You know, we're hearing a lot from people in northern Oakland County that don't think this is going to benefit them. Can you speak to how it will?
Yeah. Yeah, in part by what we've said. You will now be in a system, even if you're in a current NODA or WODA system, where you will now be integrated with the full county system. You'll be able to go not just to local services in your own community, but you will now be connected to a comprehensive transit system in Oakland County that can get you not only anywhere you want in Oakland County, but if you eventually get onto a smart bus, anywhere in Macomb and Wayne County as well. So your communities will now be connected. But in addition to that, we have abilities in this millage to enhance the door-to-door services, the reservation, the app-based services that frankly aren't always able to be provided under the cost structure of some of the northern and western services, because this millage would completely cover the entire cost of the current existing services and offer these additional enhanced services as well. So I think that's the idea for folks that are currently either in one of the other three non-smart systems or not in a system at all. And there's a number of communities that have no transit systems at all in Oakland County. And at the end of the day, every single community in Oakland County will be connected to this comprehensive transit service, much like, by the way, exactly like Macomb County. Macomb County has been an all opt-in county for decades. So you can go from Romeo to St. Clair Shores. And that's how it would be if the voters decide to pass this millage on November the 8th. Thank you. Any other question, or are you good? Okay. Kathy, do you have questions from any of our other media folk?
I don't have questions, but I do have a comment from Tia.
Okay.
Who says, even if you don't use it, others do. If you are part of a community, then you are part of the collective, and many services will be shared. And we need to make some decisions as a collective community to support others with several kinds of transportation options.
Could you tell me why we weren't allowed to opt out? Other communities weren't allowed to opt out? This has been tried 2 times before. It failed. Why aren't certain cities or all the cities able to opt out? She just mentioned about Livonia. They're an opt out.
Right.
Why couldn't other communities in Oakland County opt out?
Right.
I live in Commerce.
So all right. So
$30,000 right now. You're going to drop it and go 10 times more. Why?
So So the question is why wouldn't cities or communities be allowed to opt out?
Yeah.
That is the current system. That has been the current system in Oakland County for decades.
Luke Johnson has been at many of your meetings and said this has never happened before. The opt out for this.
Wait, can I answer? Let me answer your question. Right now in Oakland County, communities have the ability to opt into service or opt out of service, and so about 60% of the county gets smart bus service, and then if you add the WODA and NODA, which is not as comprehensive as smart, that's another percentage of the population. But a number of communities currently have opted out. Novi is one of them. Rochester Hills is another one.
But not for this thing. You're not allowed to opt out.
Right. So if you don't mind, let me answer. So the difference in this plan is different. In the past, every 4 years, we have put a millage on the ballot that allowed communities to opt in or opt out. This year, the Board of Commissioners voted in a bipartisan vote to ask the entire county to opt in. And if the county votes to opt in, all communities will be in. If the county voters decide not to, we'll be back at square zero and we'll have to do something else. But this is a new plan that it's never been asked. The voters have never been asked to do an all countywide in transit, bus transit service millage before. So this is new, and this is what the Board of Commissioners decided. I appreciate that. Yes, Commissioner. Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you.
I'm Bob Huffman, Oakland
Yeah.
County Commissioner. I represent the largest district in Oakland County. It's all based on population. I have about 200 square miles. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that as a society, we have a duty and obligation to provide transportation to those people who need a leg up. The veterans, the seniors, those with disabilities and special needs. but I am adamantly opposed to this plan because right now the smart system is working. You guys went from in 2000.
So we're actually taking questions now, Commissioner, because this is a press conference. It's not a town hall per se, but if you have a question, I would love to answer it. But otherwise, I will share that the Commissioner is opposed to the millage, so that's fair, but I wonder if you have a question.
Well, you suggested, and I've heard it from the Dave Woodward, the chair,
Mhm.
that the average homeowner will pay about $95 a year.
$9 a month, so that's $108 if my math is right.
That much per year.
Yeah.
They lead us to believe that $200,000 the average price of a home.
Yeah.
In fact, the average price of a home in Oakland County is $349,000, so that is not accurate. People would pay about $166, and it taxes everything. You also have to remember too, in my rural district, we
I still don't think that's a question, Bob. I don't mind. Okay.
I tell you this
I-
is ill-conceived.
Okay.
And I introduced a resolution too.
Okay, so
I'll ask you
this
this
is,
question.
okay.
I
All
have a
right.
question.
Yeah.
The smart millage expires at the end of this year.
Yes.
We have this proposal on November 8th ballot.
Yep.
I proposed a resolution at Oakland County, and it was referred to the Lago,
Hmm.
to allow using ARPA funds, if this fails, to use ARPA funds to keep smart moving, to provide the service we all know is valuable. Then I want to know why it was not taken up by Lago. The chairman referred it to Lago. Lago did not take it up. The chairman said he's not gonna take it up. This is a backup plan in case your plan fails. I wanna know why we don't have a backup plan and why we don't have an opt-out. And I was told we don't have an opt-out because they have to set up an authority. Well, then why don't we set up an authority?
Well, okay, so I can't speak to why a committee of the board, I'm not on the Board of Commissioners, I can't speak to why a committee of the board didn't take up your resolution. I will reiterate that the Board of Commissioners, in a bipartisan vote, put this on the November 8th ballot for the citizens of Oakland County to decide. And so, I respect the board. It's the board's role to put millages on the ballot, and that's what the board did. And so here we are. And I'm not here to advocate in favor or against it. This is an educational press conference, an opportunity for the press to hear from folks who use transit services. And I certainly appreciate all of you being here. This has been very enlightening. For those of us who have the luxury of having a car and being able-bodied enough to use it, I do take transit services, but not on a regular basis. So I know for me, it's been really helpful to hear from those of you who depend on it and the stories that you've shared. And so I don't think we have any other media questions. So I will just give each of our panelists one opportunity to just sort of sum up in 30 seconds. If you could say something to the voters of Oakland County, what would that be? And Lucas, we'll start with you again. We'll stay on the same path.
Alrighty. Well, as a friend of mine said, even if you don't depend on transit yourself, you interact regularly with someone you do. It could be the person who bags your groceries at Kroger, who serves you your food at a restaurant. Someone you interact with, someone you depends on transit. They can't afford a car, they can't feasibly use one to get to and from their work. Transit is essential to keep our economy rolling, and that's something that I feel like just needs to be emphasized, and that essential service will be expanded to more of the county now. Will support, in this era of staffing shortages, will support businesses in all parts of Oakland County for the first time in decades. So I think this is really important to consider.
Thank you. Kermit, 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible.
You're a politician.
Yeah, I am. I'm a recovering politician, so thank you. One of the key things that we haven't heard today that I want to highlight is the investment that enhancing the service, the transit service will create for the region. We are no longer competing city by city. This is all regional investment. And so people say, not in my backyard. If somebody else can pay $7, I don't want to pay it. but they don't look at the overall decrease in cost for goods, services, and products that we will have when we have good transit. Every major metropolitan area that has great transit not only has good investment in jobs, they have better schools, they have better education in order to do that. And so when you have college students that can't traverse to all of the colleges that OCC provides, that's a problem. The last thing that I will say, Dave, because I'm at my 30 seconds, is that 70% of people who interact with the criminal justice system start off with a traffic violation. So a lot of the people that fill up OCJ jail is because they got a suspended license and still had to drive, because we don't have valuable transportation system that gets everybody to where they need to be. And so this is more than a tax issue. This is a social justice issue. And I want to commend County Executive Coulter for using transit to unite us instead of what we had in the past where transit divided us.
Thank you, Kermit. Pamela, if you could have 30 seconds just to speak to people in Oakland County.
As I previously said, transportation is life support that so many of us have had no choice but to rely on. And please, to all of you voting, consider your fellow citizens' needs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I just want to say how important transportation is. We all, most of us, drive cars, but for some of us who can't, my father, he had brain cancer when he was 55, drove his whole life and didn't anticipate coming down with a terminal illness. And we needed to modify a vehicle, and then he had to learn how to take public transportation. So it really can change your life just with an illness or an injury when you're not able to get where you need to go, your employment, to visit family, to get to doctor appointments. So we just want to be as independent as possible.
Thank you. And Adam, we'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thank you. Just the more options we have for the people that we serve, the better.
All right, I'll take the last word. Thank you, panel. Thank you for being here and spending the time. Thank you for talking to our Oakland County residents, and to the Oakland County residents, remember, there's an Oakland County transportation millage on the ballot November 8th. And thank you very much for joining us.